Hello and welcome to our weekly roundup of the latest blockchain gaming news. Today is Friday, 15th November. I am Jenny Jordan and with me is co-host John Jordan. Hi John, how are you doing?
Yeah, Friday again, isn't it?
Friday, November, lots of
Yeah,
rain, not
foggy.
so much
No
sun.
sun at all. Gracious.
So this week marks 1 year. I think I'm not exactly sure about the date when Pixels migrated to Ronin. I think it was 7th November,
I think it
wasn't
was
it?
earlier.
So it was
I think it's
actually
technically. I
last
think
week.
it's actually very late October, but yeah, we say no.
Sort of end of October, November, they went live on Ronin, and that's been a success story,
Yeah,
hasn't it? So it was really shut
I think
off
we can say that.
previously on Polygon, and you would say it worked fairly well there as well in terms of being a Web3 game anyway. So we did talk to him about kind of the migration, what they've learned through this year of being deployed on Ronin. Obviously felt, as a lot of game developers, that Polygon wasn't really offering the sort of support for gaming projects. It wasn't sort of a gaming specific blockchain, more of a general purpose blockchain. So it aligned better going with Sky Mavis and partnering up there, which does offer a blockchain which is sort of specified for gaming.
Yeah.
And it's seen, like we said, remarkable success, but equally it's been attracting a lot of bots as well, as these sort of rewards-based games do, and particularly Pixels, which is very open with we are play to earn, and they launched their Pixel token, which has actually not been that successful, some would say.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was going to go back to your Polygon point. I think sort of the trends we see over the years is if you go back far enough, sort of people were running people were literally running games on Ethereum mainnet back in the day, and obviously that didn't work with gas prices going up with DeFi. So then everyone moved, and there wasn't really many options then. So Polygon was sort of where everyone ended up, not because it was because there weren't really any other options. And I guess since then we've seen, starting with probably Pixels and going on into this year, quite a big migration of games that were just on Polygon, because Polygon was the sort of the Ethereum sort of people used to call it the Ethereum scaling solution or whatever. And then sort of, as you say, Polygon sort of had a community because there were lots of games there, but didn't really have a strong community. And we've seen, I guess, Ronin and then sort of Immutable and various other sort of chains then sort of actually sort of bring games together and actually create a bit more of a community around what they're doing. So I think there are several reasons I think to look at what Pixels is doing. One is because they were sort of the first one to successfully do this migration, as in they taking 10,000 DAUs. So they had a core fan base who really liked what they were doing, and then sort of 10x that, or effectively at the moment they've sort of they did that. Their activity's gone up and down, as you say, a lot of bots and stuff. They peaked at over 1 million, and now they're about 300,000. But from 10,000 to 300,000 in a year, I think that's where you would sort of say the headline success has come from, or that would be the headline metric for success. As you say, the token prices are really nothing to do with fundamentals really at the moment. That's very much speculative and not quite clear why to me. I mean, no game tokens have done particularly well this year, really. But the Pixel token, it did actually go up. It's actually a bit more complicated. They had the Berry token, and they reissued the Berry token as the Pixel token, ratio of 100 to 1, I think. Did actually go up to $1. Now it's about 20 cents. But I think you would say that's it's a sort of a lagging indicator. But always interesting to talk to Luke about what he's up to. He's a very interesting figure.
Good. And then on to Pirate Nation, which launched season 3 yesterday, 14th of November. Which is very focused again on staking and on that sort of core community. We talked about that with Pixels, and kind of what the Pixels CEO has pointed out is sort of how they are kind of diverting their Pixel rewards very much to the people that are contributing to the ecosystem rather than those who are just sort of extracting and leaving. for sort of quick gains. And so similarly with Pirate Nation, their reward structure is changing and kind of tweaking a little bit more towards those who are staking, and quite generously so, or aggressively so, you would say. So can you talk a little bit more about that, John?
Yeah, so I guess, as you say, sort of, I mean, maybe because they're games that I follow a lot and play, that I think Pixels and Pirate Nation have been two of the, obviously, sort of more successful, better quality blockchain games of the last sort of year or so. So the one slight difference, I guess, with Pirate Nation is that this is a points season. So the pirate token is live, and you can generate points by staking the pirate token. So if you go to an exchange or go to wherever Uniswap and buy the pirate token and stake it, then you're going to accumulate more points. But the sort of the point of the game is most people aren't going to do that. Most people are just going to want to play the game, and so you get points by playing the game now. And they've sort of expanded the ability to earn points. Before it was very much focused on owning the founder NFTs. Now they've split that out and they have a separate leaderboard. So those NFTs are now about 1 ETH, so fairly expensive. So probably people aren't going to be buying those. But if you have those, you get points, but it's on a leaderboard reward system. And then they have another leaderboard system for referrals and social sort of farming. So previously they were all sort of put into one. Now they've split it out. And as always happens with Pirate Nation, they pretty much update that game every week. It's a browser-based game, actually, like Pixels. So they go through this very fast, iterative process, very much like Pixels as well. Again, so they've just added some quite interesting. I mean, they're not. If you haven't played the game before, they're not massive features, but they've added this new thing called Stowaway, so you can sort of take a card from round to round. It's the battling bit of it has a deck builder sort of turn-based battling. So I play that quite a lot, and that's actually, for someone who plays the game quite a lot, that's quite a big tactical addition, because there's cards that you don't have enough sort of action points for in a round, but you really want to use it next round, so you can sort of save those. So that's pretty cool. And they've also, again, there's another minor point, but for people who've played the game a lot, a big one, they've increased the character maximum level caps. So previously you maxed out at level 30, now you get to level 35. So that means a lot of people who've sort of leveled up their characters can now sort of keep leveling them. They also, as part of season 3 went live yesterday. The rewards for season 2 are claimable on the 21st. I think that's next Thursday, is it? Something like that. So again, that was sort of based around these sort of points. It's a little bit unclear at the moment what these points are for. So the current system is there's the pirate token, which is for, obviously, the game's called Pirate Nation. So that's sort of pretty clear what that's for. And you can actually sort of spend your pirate token, buying things, and you can actually stake it and get these gems. I won't go into all that detail. But you're getting these points, and the assumption is the points will be for the underlying blockchain. So there are 2 blockchains actually running the game at the moment. They're going to have like a multi-chain system. They're both L3s running on Arbitrum Orbit, I think. So the assumption is that these points are somehow going to at some point going to get you tokens for this underlying blockchain. That's never been said explicitly because they're an American company and they have to be careful what they say. Maybe with with Trump in power, that sort of stuff's going to be sort of eased a little bit. But so we don't quite know what the points are for. But the system actually is quite even more focused than last time, I think, for season 3 on getting people to stake their pirate tokens and get these multipliers by sort of playing. It's not quite every day. I think you quite play every day, but you can basically get a multiplier of up to 7,000%, the 700%. If you sort of do everything they tell you to do, and you're already staking pirate tokens, you sort of roll over these multipliers. But if you unstake your pirate tokens to sell them, you immediately go back down to 100%. So they've really sort of overjuiced it for the top end people who are going to stake. And one of the sort of headline things about the pirate token when it went live was the amount of people who claimed it and then staked it. So they have a nice sort of process where you basically claim your pirate token and stake it within one transaction. So you basically hit one button and roll it all over, which obviously means people aren't selling this pirate token. Now the pirate token actually price is sort of not quite an all-time low, but is steadily declined pretty much. As with every game token from over 2024. But like I think it's like 80%. I can't remember the exact figure, but something like 80%, 75, 80% of people who have claimed this pirate token have staked it. So that's sort of an interesting KPI for the people who bought the NFTs. That's really how you got the pirate token, was for buying the NFTs in the first place. And I say they're at quite a high price, and the people are not selling out. So, that's not the only measure of success. But, I just kind of think they're a really good team. They worked on Farmville famously, I guess, for Zynga. So they know about building big scale blockchain games. They are the only sort of fully on-chain game at the moment that is sort of, you would say, is mass market. So it is a fully on-chain game, but you can just go and play the game. You don't need to create a wallet or anything like that. Although if you do, obviously you can play it through MetaMask if you know what you're doing there. So they just seem to be sort of in that sweet spot of having a game. I wouldn't say it's the most fun game. I sort of had a slight sort of, not quite argument, but when I had the CEO Amit on the podcast, he was a bit taken aback when I said the game wasn't really innovative from a gameplay point of view, and he very much thought it was. But I just kind of think it's, if you play the game and you've played other games, you sort of, it's really well put together, but it's not like, wow, I've never seen that before. But it does all that game stuff really well, and crafting, and it has all this sort of economy that they're working on as well. But it just has all the blockchain. Everything's on the blockchain, so it has sort of. I find it sort of sitting in a sweet spot from that point of view. Even in a way that Pixels, I think, is more sort of crypto, just the way you onboard and whereas not I would it's not a competition between those two games. I think they're both really good, both worth checking out. So I'm well up for season 3 of Pirate Nation. So
I would say they're both kind of examples really throughout 2024 of, they are really two of the best games out there that are live and playable at the moment, and we are going to talk about the third one. And I would say those are really the top 3. You might sort of throw in a couple of more games into that as well, but so we're going to talk about Off the Grid from Godzilla Games. They launched about a month ago, a bit more, 8th of October, on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. So a steady growth of users. It's not quite clear how many, because there's just not that kind of verifiable data yet. They say that the numbers that are officially out there from sort of DappRadar and other trackers are not correct. They are a bit lower than.
So they say that the problem we have at the moment is everything's running on their Guns blockchain, which is a L1 based on Avalanche, so you can see the sort of raw data through the Block Explorer. DappRadar is tracking at about 270,000 daily active unique wallets. And I specifically asked them, was DappRadar's numbers right? And they said no, DappRadar's numbers were too low. Then there's Flipside, which is a sort of a not quite. DappRadar sort of prepares its own sort of data, sort of gives it to you. Whereas other ones, this one's called Flipside. It's a bit like June. You can build your own dashboard. So someone has built a dashboard. I don't know who it is, and that has about 500,000. That's been pretty steady, 500,000. So
double what DappRadar has almost.
So it's almost double. So somewhere between the two, you would go, and it depends a little bit with these blockchain games. And you have it with Pixels as well. You can sort of look at how many wallets sort of logged in, but then how many wallets did something, in terms of the game, and that's always a slight, it's almost like philosophical, what's a user, and I guess Pixels, going back to the original, the interview you had with them, they're focused very much on how can we focus on our committed players and who are doing the most things in the game, and how can we identify them and reward them. And I think blockchain games always start off and they always want big headline figures, and they always want the biggest number because that's, everyone loves great numbers, investors, whatever. It gets people excited about the product. But as these products mature, you want to know more about, you want to know who are your top 10%, 20% of players, and how can you keep those guys retained? And it's sort of, so I think the games sort of go big to begin with, and then they sort of start to, particularly blockchain games where you might be giving away financial stuff with financial value, you sort of want to focus in on what's going on. And I guess Off the Grid at the moment is very much like we want to have the headline sort of figure, and Godzilla Games, the developer, hasn't actually given any official numbers yet, so it's a little bit in the dark about exactly where they are. But anyway, sorry.
We did you did interview them a while back,
Yeah.
and sort of post-launch that they did say then quite about 6.5 million wallets had been created.
Just created,
Just
yeah.
sort of post-launch. So
Yeah.
prior to that, I had about 2.5 million. So that's a good kind of indication of the growth. Obviously, that's more now because that was sort of just after launch. Anyhow, so this week they announced their Clash for Cash tournament, which it runs on a daily basis. It's kind of the leaderboard is reset daily at I think 8 p.m. UK time.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that one actually. Yeah,
It doesn't
so it
matter.
resets daily. It contains the $3,000 prize pool. On the leaderboard will get a share of that prize pool. So that's kind of say that again.
No, I mean it's quite a. In some degrees, you can 3,000 is not a lot, but it's 3,000 every day. So it's suddenly it starts. It's not.
No, something,
I don't know how long they're going to run it. Not sure how long they're going to run it for, but it's some people. I mean, you get the top of the leaderboard gets $1,000. You think there's not many people who can be that skillful. There's probably about like 10 people are going to be sharing, like earning $1,000 a day, or really vying for that. You can sort of, no good for the likes of me playing a game who can't get one kill, but for those top 100 players, are going to really drive a lot of.
Specifically, this tournament is about the Extraction Royale mode, where you accumulate points for your kills and your assists and
Extraction,
yes, exactly. And so the game is only launched in early access, so that's the mode that's live at the moment. But further down the line, there'll be more features coming live. Yeah. Ronin, we touched on that when we talked about pixels and kind of their migration from Polygon, and now we have another game this week that announced their migration to Ronin, and that is Fableborne from Pixian Games, and they are coming from being deployed on Avalanche initially, I think. So it's kind of it's a bit interesting. It's a European based studio, I think UK based, as opposed to a lot of the sort of Asian developers that have previously been joining Ronin, apart from obviously Pixels, American. And you would say this is a little bit of a different game, isn't it, for Ronin? It kind of adds a little bit of diversity. Have often been saying that Ronin is too kind of too streamlined in kind of.
When I was talking to Jeff on the podcast, I saw a slight sort of joke, but they have a lot of because they're Southeast Asian focused. They've ended up with a lot of sort of pixel RPGs, MMORPGs, and the games actually can be quite different in terms of gameplay, but the look of sort of the artwork and the thematic style a little bit sort of blurs into one, considering they have pixels as their sort of main game as well. So I was sort of pushing him about sort of different genres they were were they looking specifically for different genres, and Fableborne is, as you say, pretty experienced team based in London. They've always had a sort of focus around not necessarily a game that could be used for an esport, but they've always sort of. I think they I'm not sure if they still use it, but they used to have sort of the term esports in your lunch hour. So the idea of a competitive game that rewards high levels of skill, but you're not you're doing it on your phone in a sort of ad hoc basis rather than it being big esports tournaments like you would get with big PC games. So that's their sort of been one of their ideas, and Fableborne has I think gone through. A few different sort of graphical looks as well, and from what I can tell, the gameplay it was pretty basic actually. I mean, that was a couple of years ago when I sort of last looked at it properly. But this idea of sort of attacking people's bases, so sort of building your own sort of base, and then attacking other people's bases, and I think that they've been sort of working quietly in the sort of the crypto space. I don't think they're one that's gained a lot of sort of publicity. You said it's sort of interesting. It was interesting they were on Avalanche sort of fairly early, one of the first games to announce on Avalanche. And I think they sort of found a little bit that while there are some big games on Avalanche, they tend to bit like we were talking about with Polygon. Avalanche doesn't really have a gaming community. I think Avalanche has, Avalanche games like Off the Grid or Shrapnel have their own communities, but it's not like Ronin where people will try every game on Ronin. And I think that's sort of why you would move to something like Ronin, where I don't think any game that's launched on Ronin, apart from a very couple of early ones, haven't had like 100,000 wallets play during their testing phases. So not to say everything clearly won't be a success on Ronin, but I think the Ronin community generally will go, oh, there's a new game here, let's try it out. And I think Fableborne, because it is that sort of accessible mobile game, is sort of will be quite easy to get into, and I think, as I say, I think it is. They don't really have an action game. I mean, they call it now Diablo meets Clash of Clans, which, I mean, people use these sort of mix up sort of marketing phrases in a fairly loose way. I mean, it's nothing nothing like as deep as Diablo, which is a massive deep PC RPG, and I don't think it's as polished as Clash of Clans, one of the most successful mobile games ever. But you can sort of see what they're trying to get around. It's sort of the accessibility of mobile, but maybe this sort of depth of some of the sort of skill elements. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it, actually, I have to say. Yeah.
And I think they call it like snackable game sessions, don't they? Where you can sort of just nip in for 5 minutes. You don't need to sit there and pay attention for half an hour, sort of thing, or else you'll lose. So yeah, definitely interesting. Keep an eye on. Right, so as we are coming to the end of this year, we have started looking at trends throughout 2024, and one has already actually run ahead of everybody else and already published a State of Web3 Gaming report for 2024, although it is worth pointing out that they say this was finished on the 30th of September, so it actually only tracks the first 3 quarters of 2024. So obviously a lot has already happened, particularly in maybe you might not say that a lot has happened in Web3 gaming, but we've had the launch of Off the Grid, we have had the launch of Champions Tactics, we are seeing some other sort of movements on the market, and obviously with the general crypto market and sentiment changing significantly at the moment, things might kind of change quite a lot. So yeah, so anyway, this looks at sort of the first 3 quarters, which was fairly, we would say not a lot happened, a little bit depressing, but the bright spark has obviously been Telegram, as Game 7's report points out. Telegram and Ton games have been the sort of big headline success, you would say, throughout 2024. Other things have been the growth of L2 and L3 blockchains, which are sort of blockchains that are built on top of other blockchains, L1s, and Immutable's growth in terms of how many games are building within their ecosystem, which we have sort of tracked throughout the year already from the big blockchain game list. Have seen, we've tracked sort of the growth of like hundreds of games joining Immutable, but still the number they sort of claim are building on them, about 400 plus games I think they're up to now. Obviously not all of them officially announced yet, so I think we're tracking about 200 at this moment that's sort of officially been announced. So yeah, any other takeaways, John, that you found interesting from the report?
Yeah, so it's sort of always a bit of a sort of a frenemy situation with the Game 7 reports. They did one last year, and the thing is that I think it's like, I don't know actually if they're full time, but they have 5 people working on the report. So it's like a really big sort of effort for them, and they come up with these massive reports. I think this one's like, I don't know, 59 pages long. And it's a lot of graphs. And as you say, some of it is, just sort of highlights stuff that everyone knows. I mean, everyone knows Telegram is really big. Maybe putting some numbers around that is sort of interesting. But we've done. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do that sort of research. We've done that, and it's no great surprise to anyone that Epic Game Store has lots of blockchain enabled games on the Epic Game Store. Again, we've sort of covered that, and similarly with all the sort of migration from Polygon to Immutable that's been going on. So some of the stuff they've sort of done, it's not. I don't think it's incorrect. But it's sort of I think to some degree they sort of over egg the pudding a little bit with all this sort of supposedly all this sort of massive amounts of data about stuff that everyone already knows, and they go into a lot of detail, which may be interesting to people, maybe not, about sort of what game genres are out there and stuff. And for these days, I don't know the difference between an RPG and an MMORPG. I just kind of think that stuff is not very useful. They've done some stuff about sort of the geographies of where people are based, but it's sort of hard to know exactly how meaningful it is. Is the Sandbox a US company, or is it because all its people are in Argentina? Is it an Argentinian company? I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity in data, and I think sometimes going into all this detail in ambiguous data, you can put some nice graphs together, but is that it may actually be more confusing because of the ambiguity of the data. Anyway, some of the stuff they do, I think they do really well though. So particularly it's good when they do stuff based around quarters. So they did some stuff around the number of gaming tokens launched. And they do have a lot of historic data. So I think they went back to 2021, even further than that, I think. And I guess you can find that data fairly easy. It's easy to find that data from like CoinGecko, or you can see when tokens are going live and stuff. So that's sort of interesting. And it also plays into this thing where you said they put out supposedly their report for 2024, but they're missing out 3 months. So I was going to say, sort of, let's hope nothing important happens. I mean, obviously they've not. We'll see what happens to token prices. Crypto, over the last week has has bombed up, and and supposedly if anyone looks back at their 2024 report in 3 years' time, none of that will be captured in there. So that's a bit of a personal bugbear to me, who is going to be writing a report for 2024. And it's going to have all the data from 2024, so I'll have to do that in January. So that's my own personal sort of problem. But when they do it in quarters, it's fine because then you can see the quarters, and they go to Q3 2024. So that stuff's interesting. And the other thing they do really well is they look at blockchain. So in sort of announcements and launches of blockchains, as you sort of mentioned, the L2, L3 story, and the reason they do that is actually Game 7 is part of what was called BitDAO. So BitDAO was one of the early DAOs. In 2021, it raised like $700 million. Just launched, it had its own token, as you did in those days. No one knew what the token was for, but they raised tons of money for it, and they've managed to basically accumulate that treasury. So I think the treasury is still over $1 billion. So they're part of this, what was a big DAO, and then the DAO sort of decided it was going to do its own L2. So they have an L2 called Mantle, and BitDAO doesn't really exist anymore. The token's now called the Mantle token. And so Game 7 is sort of part of Mantle. And obviously, running its own L2, it's very focused, sort of, that's its competitive sort of field, looking at all the other L2s and L3s. So one thing they do, I think really well, is look at all these L2 and L3s launching. Again, we know the headline figures. We know loads of L2 and L3s have launched this year. That's not a surprise. But I think some of the data there is sort of interesting, and whether people are building on, I think Arbitrum Orbit was the biggest one, and then OP Stack was second, and then Avalanche, and then all that sort of stuff. So that was the bits. I mean, obviously, the personal thing. That was the bits I found interesting. But I just kind of think, one, I just think it's slightly duplicitous to do a 2020, 2024 report and release it, when, I think it's fine to release it in December and take November data. Probably that would be my limit. But having data in September, I just think it's a little bit. I know why they do it, because it's a massive thing for them, and they have to make all these graphs, and they do a nice PDF and all that sort of stuff. So I'm slightly overemphasizing the sort of minor points, I suppose. So I think people should download it.
Say it again.
I think people should download it. It's free. You have to put in your email and everything. I mean, it's like a marketing sort of grab for them for emails. But it's worth. I guess the one thing is it's comprehensive, so different people may find different parts of it interesting. Like I found a certain part of it interesting. Other people may, So I guess it sort of tabulates a whole bunch of stuff that maybe people outside of the games industry, wouldn't have come across. So
Now, as you're kind of putting together your own report and looking at trends, are there any sort of things you think they have completely missed in the report? That
I mean, they never look at token prices, which is sort of, I don't quite know.
Say that's an indication then of whether the sector in general is sort of going well or not. Whether
it's data. I mean, it's data around sentiment, I would say. So. I mean, it's just a bit of an odd. When you think about crypto, you think about token prices. That's a bit of an odd thing for them not to do. As a minor point as well, I did think some of their investment data, which I track quite carefully, was off actually. So actually, I thought they were low compared to my numbers. They were low on 2023, and they're high on 2024. So their conclusion was funding for blockchain game sector has sort of stabilized in 2023, 2024. Whereas my conclusion is blockchain gaming sector investment is actually running now down 24% this year on last year, and last year had a very big December. So I would be surprised if 2024 isn't down at least 30%.
And they didn't even have the Astra one in there then, did they? Because that was
no, they wouldn't have had the Astra. No, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, obviously every data set is going to be slightly different, and there are other data providers who have been mentioned, who I won't mention when it comes to reports, who I think can be pretty shoddy. So Game 7 are not shoddy. They obviously got five intelligent people working full time, pulling all this data out. They pull out tons of data. But I think something I found personally is data is fine, but the context is what gives it importance. So just putting out 60 pages of graphs, it's probably me, you, and the Game 7 people are the only people who would go through that report and understand it on a deep level. I mean, because we're the people who write those reports, so everyone else will be a bit like, oh, there's a whole, because the graphs are complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So anyway, but whatever.
No, I'm interested in this point. Sorry, I get stuck on this point. But so they would have tracked, say, Q4 2023's investments. Would they have tracked that as part of 2024? Because that was, for instance, that was 100 million into what's it called, Game Dozy, for instance. I think.
Yeah. No, they wouldn't. I think
raised 100 million at Q4, didn't they? 2023. So
they
would just leave out Q4 when they do a year report. That's not
because they would. So as far as I understand it, when they do 2025, they will obviously then cover Q4 2024 and put it in. So they'll update 2024 then. So they will add that quarter into the annualized number.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, it's a little bit confusing.
Yes.
Actually, yeah. No, I get your point. Okay. Right. Last point, John. Team Liquid. I leave that to you.
Yeah. So so Team Liquid, I don't know. The most successful esports team in history. Certainly one of the best known. Been going for a long time. Very standard esports team. Play all the usual big esports competitions. And they've had the thing actually started in 2020. A thing called then they called it Liquid Plus, and it was like a fan engagement platform, whatever you want to call it, fan loyalty platform. And basically, you logged in and it asked you to do things like read this article or watch this stream or like something on Twitter, the usual sort of fan engagement type stuff. It sort of told you what was going on for Team Liquid. We've got a team playing in the Dota 2 tournament in Brazil or something. Check out their game on Twitch, whatever. And then you got some points. Nothing to do with crypto. And you could accumulate these points, and then if you got, you really had to grind. You might be able to buy a free mug or something, or there were competitions, usual sort of stuff. But now they've been working on this for a while, actually, and they've been conservative. I think generally I would say they're conservative with a small c organisation about business models and stuff. And they have been looking at blockchain for a while, but while lots of other sort of brasher esports teams jumped into blockchain in 2022 and did loads of NFTs and raised those, sort of did the whole thing, and then obviously that was a backlash because people were spending lots of money buying NFTs that then weren't worth anything. So I think they were sensible not to get involved in that sort of situation. But they've now relaunched what was Liquid Plus. It's now called MyBlue. So Blue is the sort of cute horse mascot. So their mascot of Team Liquid is this sort of horse. And they have this cute plushy sort of thing called Blue, who's their sort of mascot, like football teams have, cute little mascots. So you have this thing called MyBlue, and this is connected when you log in. Now you can just choose to have the basic option and not have any of the sort of blockchain stuff if you hate blockchain, I suppose. But if you choose the MyBlue option on the Sui, running on the Sui blockchain, you basically have this little blue character and little mascot. And as you unlock things, and as you do these sort of social sort of farming things, or whatever, you can attach your Steam account, and you get, like, depending on how much you play every week, you can get different points and different rewards, and you basically get these digital items that you can then customize your blue. So he has a hat, he has a head, obviously you can put things on his head. He has two hands that you put things in his hands. He has a body, you can put different sort of suits on him and stuff. So it's pretty basic. And it's all soul bound, so you can't sell these items. They're just for you to show off your, you got some cool thing. And obviously some of them, if you just rock in, you get a whole bunch of this stuff for free. So it's all still free, but you get a whole bunch of this sort of basic stuff pretty easily. Some of the stuff will probably be sort of specific items created for specific tournaments. I know when Team Liquid wins the biggest the biggest sort of tournament in League of Legends or something, maybe there'll be a special themed item that you only get if you were watching that Twitch stream at the time. You can sort of see how it will play out. And I guess over time, running on a blockchain gives them a bit more optionality in terms of they could give away SUI tokens. I would be amazed if that doesn't happen. I would sort of be amazed if at some point they don't have a Team Liquid token running on SUI. I mean, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. But once you've got this infrastructure, and particularly if the sort of the legal ramifications of crypto are going to ease, as we think they probably will. I mean, Team Liquid are based in. I'm not sure where they're based, but they started in Europe, so maybe in Europe it's a bit different. But anyway, you can just sort of see where these things will go, and you can even imagine SUI is doing a big push on gaming, so it's great to have a well-known esports team like Team Liquid in there. And you could imagine, maybe in a Fall Guys type game on SUI and blue, your blue customized blue character could be brought into a full, into a game, and you run around and you have your blue character in there. You can just, it's sort of in a sense a great opportunity, a great example of blockchain doesn't have to be crypto from in that sort of crude sense. It's not all about making things with value, but it's a way of deepening engagement, and over time other things can be unlocked. It's it's sort of a little bit under the radar, but SUI, which actually we think I'm saying it wrong, it should be Sue, I think, but anyway. They actually are building up a bit of momentum on the gaming space. Obviously, they got their handheld PC thing coming out next year, and they're starting to pick up a few sort of interesting games. So, I don't think they're ever going to be. They're not a gaming blockchain. They are an L1 that has its own, everything sort of running on there, DeFi, all the usual sort of stuff. So I don't think they're ever going to be a Ronin, but I think it's interesting that they have really put the effort in, and you're starting to see some interesting partnerships. So
good. Well, thanks, John, for giving us all that information, and thank you for tuning in and listening. We'll see you all next week. Have a good week. Bye bye.